Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter. Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video, one that's in vision. I thought I'd try this. Now today, we're going to be talking about the emergency alert system, and no, not the one that a lot of people know about over in the USA or in Japan, for example. We're talking about an emergency alert system that is coming to the UK. The UK emergency alert system, what is it? And when is the test? So just a little full breakdown for anyone who might not know what an emergency alert system is. So different nations have had ways for decades now of alerting their various publics when there's some kind of danger, you know, whether that's something life-threatening, something that's just impending. The United States, for example, has used EASs or EBSs for a long time, you know, in the medium of television or radio, whether that was like mainly weather warnings. You know, they get a lot of extreme weather over in the States, so, you know, like tornadoes, hurricanes, floodings, all those sort of things. But, you know, they were also partly devised in the event of a nuclear attack, because you've got to remember this was back in the Cold War days when, you know, the US and Russia, anyone could have pushed that button at any moment. Doesn't that sound familiar? So yeah, it seems that we are finally getting our own version of that alert system on our mobile phones. Now again, other nations have had this or have had this implemented for years, and we could have had it for years too, but it only seems to be happening now. So the article, this is from the BBC, it says a UK-wide emergency alert system announced by the government is due to be tested on Sunday, the 23rd of April. A message will appear on the home screens of mobile phones and tablets from around 3 o'clock British Standard Time, accompanied by a loud siren-like sound or vibration lasting for about 10 seconds. The minister in charge of this system, Oliver Daud Khan, who, ironically enough, the time I'm recording this, became Deputy Prime Minister today, said that the new system was a vital tool to keep the public safe in life-threatening emergencies. So continuing on, you know, you might be thinking, okay, this is a test. Obviously, there's not a real impending threat at the moment. This is just to make sure the system works. So what is it going to say? It says the test alert will say, this is a test of emergency alerts, a new UK government service that will warn you if there's a life-threatening emergency nearby. In a real emergency, follow the instructions in the alert to keep yourself and others safe. Visit gov.uk/alerts for more information. This is a test. You do not need to take any action. So again, this is very like common language used for these sort of things. Again, if you look at any of the American versions that when they test the system, it very much reads as the same thing. I mean, they have to put that it's a test. If they didn't, God knows what would happen. But I guess, you know, doing this regularly is just to make sure, as I say, the system works, that it's a functional system, that it reaches the vast majority of UK people. It says the test had originally been planned for the early evening, but was moved to avoid clashing with an FA Cup semi-final, which kicks off at Wembley Stadium at 4:30. Phone users can swipe away the alert message or click OK on their home screen to continue using their phone as normal. So it's not really going to impact your day that much. You know, you can get rid of this really quickly. It's just, as I say, it's just a test. Probably for the best that they moved it. Could you imagine, like, if it had clashed with the FA Cup and, you know, they're playing football, then all of a sudden everyone's phones just go absolutely berserk with these alerts. So I think that was a smart move. There's been a lot of questions already as to, well, why roll this out? What sort of things are they going to be covering with this? And we'll get to that in just a little bit. But the next bit of the article says which devices will receive the alerts. It says they'll work on all 4G and 5G phone networks in the UK and on devices with the following software. So if you've got an iPhone, you've got to be running iOS 14.5 or later, and on phones and tablets that run Android, you've got to be running version 11 or later. You don't need to register, or you don't need to download an application. However, older non-smartphones will be unable to receive the alerts, and nor will devices that are turned off or on airplane mode. The alert will sound on phones on silent mode. So just to point out that, you know, it mentions non-smartphones. You know, a lot of older people use older mobile phones that are somewhat a bit simpler to use, or, you know, just a bit more accessible. But what it doesn't mention there is that, you know, there are smartphones out there that are designated as smartphones that won't be able to receive this, you know, whether that's old iterations of the iPhone, old Android phones, which, you know, are technically smartphones. We've had smartphones since, you know, they really grew in popularity in like the early 2010s, but a lot of those won't take those versions. I mean, I've got an old iPad. I don't use it anymore, but I've got an iPad that I think was second generation. So when would that have been? Like 2013, 14? I don't know what iOS that is, but I tried updating, because it obviously still says you need to update. I tried updating that and it just wouldn't have it. You know, it wouldn't take it on. So I do worry about, it's probably a small amount, you know, but I reckon it's still there'll be people out there who are using those sorts of phones. It says the government has said the emergency services will have other ways to notify those without a compatible device. The alerts will not replace local news, radio or social media, and it's expected to reach about 90% of mobile phones. At least that's what the Cabinet Office says. So, okay, 90% of mobile phones. That is the vast majority of the population. And for those who, some people aren't bothered about this, I think everyone will be getting the test to make sure it works, but there's a lot of people who won't be bothered about receiving these alerts in the future. And it says, despite the government strongly recommending enabling devices to receive alerts, users can opt out by searching their settings for emergency alerts and turning off severe alerts and extreme alerts. Now, I've heard some people say that we've had this technology on our phones for quite a while, or it's been a setting and the government just hasn't implemented it. And that is technically true. As I've mentioned before, other nations have used these on mobile phones for ages now. So why it's taken us this long? I wonder what potential catastrophic world event happened in the last year that might have inspired us to take this on. There's a bit about personal data, which obviously is on the topic of a lot of people's minds right now. It's saying that the government, through doing this, doesn't need to know any actual phone numbers or any personal data. It's just they're going to just transmit it from phone mass. It's just going to reach anything in range. So I guess that's a plus. Some people have criticised this, of course, namely domestic abuse campaigners, including the charity Refuge. They warn that the test could endanger some vulnerable people by potentially alerting an abuser to the location of a hidden phone. Now, the government says it's been engaging with those organisations to ensure that vulnerable people were not adversely affected, and Refuge itself has made a video showing how to turn off the alerts. So there is a video on their, I'm looking on their Instagram, which is just warning people how to avoid this, because again, there sadly are a lot of people who are having to hide their phones if they're in abusive situations, and an emergency alert like this, a large loud sound or vibration, anything like that, could give away that position, and that potentially could make them even more vulnerable or place them in direct form of harm. So again, for anyone who might be watching this video and is concerned about who might hear the alerts on their phone, again, head over to Refuge, the charity for domestic abuse, and watch their video, and it will inform you on how best to turn them off for this coming Sunday. It says, when might emergency alerts be used in the future? It says emergency alerts with advice about how to stay safe will be sent locally or nationally by the government or emergency services on rare occasions where there is a threat to life. They will initially focus on the most serious weather-related events, such as severe flooding, fires, and extreme weather, but many people will not receive an alert for months, perhaps even years. So again, the focus there is you're only going to get them if they feel that life is directly threatened, and I guess going forward with weather-related events, they'll be able to do this more locally, more regionally. So, for example, where I am in 2019, we faced severe flooding, really, really bad flooding in the local area. So, God forbid should that happen again. In theory, this emergency alert system would then send a text or a notification to all phones within that region, within that area, warning them that either severe flooding is imminent or likely to happen, etc. So obviously we're not going to really see how this works in practice until a threat to life happens, which, we all hope doesn't, comes later rather than sooner. Hopefully things like that won't happen for a very long time. But there is one possibility as well that I think that this article and I think the government are naturally trying to downplay, and that is the use of the emergency alert system if the UK ever falls under attack. Now, I just want to preface this, I am in no way trying to fearmonger or scaremonger or anything like that, because I'm not interested in stuff like that, but I do think it is important to talk about, because again, over in America, when they set up their emergency broadcast system all the way back in the 50s and 60s, whilst they have been used for weather warnings and stuff like that, it was primarily set up in the event of a nuclear strike or just a general attack. Now, as we know, last year, Russia, one of the world's largest nuclear superpowers, invaded Ukraine, and that has been going on this past year, way longer. I mean, it should have never happened to begin with, but this is going to go on and on. And given what Russia is capable of, and given what many of the Western powers are capable of in retaliation, it doesn't surprise me that around now has been the time chosen to introduce these emergency alert systems on UK phones. Again, I'm not saying I've got no information or anything like that. I don't think we're under an imminent threat of being attacked in any way by any sort of foreign power, But, you know, in an event of, we would all in theory get a message on our phones from these alert systems or a notification saying, hey, there's a missile on the way, or there's something on the way. The thing is, though, maybe they've downplayed it with an attack, because realistically, in an attack, especially if it's something of a nuclear variety, there's not a lot we can do. But I suppose maybe they didn't want to eschew that. They want to focus on what this is for, mainly like weather-wise. It says that other countries use emergency alerts, and yes, they certainly do, including the United States, the Netherlands, and Japan. Japan credits its system with saving countless lives in many natural disasters, and the US system allows the president to send a message to citizens directly, but it does not always go to plan. And in 2018, in the US state of Hawaii, an alert warning of an incoming missile was sent in error, causing widespread panic. I do actually remember this happening. This was in early January 2018, and I mean, just look at that. The alert said ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill. Like that's horrifying. That's, if you read that, you know, if any of us read that here, like mass panic. And I remember, why was the alert sent? It just was a mistake by Hawaii's Emergency Management Agency. They just pushed the wrong button during procedures that occur during the handover of a shift. They received this in the morning, I think, like early in the morning. The alert was corrected by email 18 minutes later. There was no follow-up mobile text for 38 minutes. So, you know, for a good half an hour, if you were in Hawaii, you probably thought you were going to die. Obviously, like, that's very rare, and like there's all these procedures in place that, yes, can go wrong sometimes. But I believe ultimately having this emergency alerts system on our phones here in the UK is a decent thing, mainly in terms of the weather stuff, because again, sadly, severe weather has been on the increase in the last few years here in the UK, and if it helps people avoid, you know, devastating floods or, you know, severe, like, windy weather, anything like that, any threat to life, I think that can only be perceived as a good thing. So obviously we've got the test. I'm recording this on the Friday before that test happened, so if you're watching after that, you'll know exactly how it went. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see it all play out in action. And I just wanted to talk about it because, again, we've technically been able to do this technology-wise for several years now, and many questioned, you know, as I said, why wait until 2023? Personally, I think a lot of it has to do with the war in Ukraine and the potential impacts and ramifications of that. Again, the notion of the UK being under attack and these alerts being triggered has been severely downplayed, not just in that article, but in the media in general, which is fair enough. I get, you know, if you can get accused of fear-mongering, hyping it up, it's not likely to happen, etc. But I still feel it's important to mention in there nonetheless. But that's all for this video. Let me know what you think. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, obviously, and let me know what you think down in the comments about this. Do you think having emergency alerts text to us or notified to us is a good thing? Do you think this is a bit of an outdated idea? Are you going to leave the alerts on your phone? Are you going to turn them off? Let me know all your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Also, let me know for these unscripted discussion videos if you like this, you know, me being in vision for them rather than just being, you know, a series of video clips. Again, I wanted to just try something different with it, but, you know, just let me know if you prefer InVision. Let me know if you prefer video clips. Let me know that too. Subscribe to the channel if you're brand new. We'd love to have you aboard. I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Hux Media, Ben Freeman, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Bruce Danton, Globe of Reviews, Derek Chambers, Shaun Knock, Daud Khan, for being a UPCV 2.0, and Traffy, our AMTV staff members.